Okay, I think we're live. Hi, everyone. I have my lovely producer there in the background, Kiana. Are we live? We're good? Yeah? All right. Nothing like a good stream to open Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday. All right. Hey, everyone. It's good to see people again. I can't see you, but I know you're out there. Thanks for joining the stream. Obviously, one of those casual streams. I always like to do those. How's your week doing? Going? Doing good. Awesome. Let's see who we have here. Let's see if we have some good people. I see Gregory. Hey, sir. If you are good folks, good to see some people around here. You never know with these streams. When you start those, you don't know if you're going to stream to yourself. But who cares? It's fun. Let's nerd out. Um, all right. I guess we can get going. Streamer did a lot of cool things lately. They added some new features, which is kind of nice. Also, they changed the layouts. It's pretty nice. All right, let me let's do this. I hope you can see everything, right? You see the PowerPoint, which is where we're going to leave today. So that's cool. I see Andrea. Good evening, sir. And I see a few other folks here on YouTube. Cool. All right, let's do this. So this is, I believe, it's like the third or the fourth time I'm doing this specific stream on diagramming, and obviously, I know a lot of you have been seeing me publishing a lot of these diagrams lately. And in the past few years, I've been on a journey. I've been on a journey to try to perfect those diagrams to the level that they work for me. And I guess that other like those as well. So appreciate it. Appreciate all the kind words throughout the years and those. There's always room for improvement. And today we're going to talk a bit about. I'm gonna talk a bit about the thought process here. There's a lot of thought process that goes into this. There's a lot of things that needs to happen in order for those diagrams to come to life. So we'll talk about this stuff. Few things here as we're doing this, and I will look at the chat from time to time. Good to see some good people there. When it comes to diagramming, I always said that it's really kind of a design language. You need to find your own. You need to kind of think about your own brand. So that's really what I encourage people to do. These are the things that are working for me. We all have our different styles. It doesn't mean that it will work exactly for you, but some of the principles that I will share today are basically generic enough for you to apply those on any type of diagramming effort that you're going through. So I'm going to share some of these elements. For those of you who attended previous streams, how deep I like to go when it comes to the details and just kind of fine nuances, because I do believe that that's the difference that makes a diagram between a diagram that is good to a diagram that is really great. So there's that. No detail is too small for me. I'm very detail oriented. I like to pick on the small things, not because I look for those. It's just because how my brain is wired. I tend to find things that are just kind of triggering, I guess, my OCD. So that's also the way that I'm thinking about diagramming. And I'll be jumping around today. I'll be jumping around, and I wanted to. I found that funny. This is from the previous stream, where and I hope I'm not butchering his name or her name, Adnan Khan. That I talk too much, but otherwise he was happy with the video, or she was happy with the video. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I talk too much. Sure, yeah, I mean, could be. You can do this type of stuff without talking a lot. So I appreciate the honest feedback, though. That's always good. So let's just get going. I'll try to keep it to under the 65-75 minutes. See how it goes. Again, it's a live stream, very casual. Feel free to pop some questions. In the chat. So let's see here. Yeah, I know, Canada, that I'm not in PowerPoint presentation mode. That's by design, but thanks. Cool. All right. So again, feel free to pop some questions as we go along. As throughout the years, I created a lot of architecture diagrams. I posted a lot of those. So there's a lot of examples out there online. We can also share some links after that. So I'm just going to flip into some of the diagrams. And today I want to talk to you a bit about the thought process of these diagrams, like what led me to think the way I think when it comes to diagramming and all of that. And to do that, I need to go over a few concepts with you. And hopefully by the end of today's stream, I'll also be able to take a diagram that I saw for the first time yesterday. Really. And I'll try to, on the fly, try to diagram this using my own dog food. So that's what I'm going to try to do. So let's just dive in. When it comes to diagramming, there is basically, in my universe, there are two types of diagrams. There is a block diagram and there is a flow diagram. A block diagram, and I'm looking at some of my notes here. A block diagram is always about, it's a state-driven diagram. You're describing a state, something that is happening right now, or a structure that exists right now. Okay, so that's a block diagram. And a flow diagram, as the name suggests, it's designed to be more action-driven. It's designed to describe a flow, a situation where you're transitioning from one state to another, or there are multiple states as you are describing the architecture. So that's really kind of to set the stage. Let's start dive in, okay? And we'll start with the fundamentals, and then we'll walk our way through this. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the base objects, right? I use a lot the box based object, and I use a lot the oval base object, which is usually used for numbering. So I'll talk about those first. So let's talk about the box object. So when it comes to the box object, this is the end state of the box object. But let's talk for a second about how I got there. Okay. So if I will go here, I will use the rectangle, right, with round corners. So you can see this guy right here. Okay. And I'm going to basically add one. And let's look at some of the differences. Okay. If you will go here to design, and I'll talk towards the end, I'll talk a bit more about why I use PowerPoint, why the dark theme. I'll talk about all this stuff. So that's going to be an interesting conversation there, hopefully. Let's see. I see who's popping on the chat. All right. DB. I'm interested in mapping cyber adversary kill chains to Microsoft security solution, e.g. ransomware. Okay. Not sure. I mean, could talk about it. Not sure how we can diagram around this, but all good. All right. So let's talk about the base object. So if you go to the designer and then to the shape to the design tab and then shape format, you will get an entire universe of the back end of the object. Okay. So this is what you see here. So you can see that in this one, it's important to realize that there is a guardian field. There are stops. We'll talk about all this stuff, right? There is also the line, which is kind of interesting, right? By the way, I'm using a widescreen because it's much easier to work on a widescreen when I'm diagramming. So, if you're watching this over your iPad or your, 16-inch laptop or something like that, maybe not the best experience. So when you're able to watch this on a bit more of a wider screen. Anyway, so you can see also the line, has stops. There is like brightness. There's a lot of tweaks going on in order to get there, right? And if you look at just the vanilla base object or the box object, you will see that, it's pretty much blank. Like there's nothing there. So that's the first thing. Like that's the first thing to realize when you are diagramming is what's the style that you're trying to get to, right? And you can see that just by changing to, the gradient, like you can see that things are changing. So if I'll compare some stuff here and I'll open the color plate, right? You can see that, well, this is using a more of a custom color, right? But if I will do something like this and I'll click the first stop, we'll change the color here to this, and then we'll change this one to something that is a bit more like this. We'll change the transparency. Let's see what we have here. We have transparency that is 100, brightness 0%. Let's see what we have here. So yeah, so 100. stuff like that, right? So these are the changes that you can do in order to get there, right? So you can see here that I have like my own kind of style. By the way, you can copy all this stuff. I mean, these are not things that you need to do, you know, just manually. So that's just one thing that I wanted to highlight. Just very simple on the base object. We will work with this base object a lot today. We'll get to the more interesting stuff. Okay, so that was the base object. Also notice the round corners, right? The round corners are very interesting. Like what I see a lot of times that people are just using the default, but actually the default when it comes to the round corners is pretty aggressive. Like you can see that the curve here is pretty aggressive. Like you can see here that the curve is not super aggressive. So what I like to do is I like to, if I'm creating just a new based object, I like to just tone it down a bit. That's just my own style. Let's talk about the step numbers, okay, and the oval. I'll talk a bit more about when to use steps or how I like to use steps and all of that, but that's definitely something that is important here. And again, same deal. If I'll go to the shapes and I will add just the oval, we can see that like this is and the main difference here is actually the line, like the outline. You can see here that there is a bit of gradient here, like, and also if I'll click here, we'll see that, right? You can see that we have like these stops, right? So these are just small nuances when you are creating, again, your own style, okay? Play with those colors, try some things. I'll show you some techniques later on, but this is really something that I wanted you to take out of this. So again, super boring stuff, I know, just for setting the stage. These are just the based objects, okay? Now, let's dive deeper into some more detail-oriented elements when it comes to diagrams and things that a lot of the time you will have this reaction of, oh, how come I didn't thought about that? Like, I didn't know that exists. So let me show you some stuff here. Cool. All right. We'll talk a bit about text margins and icon positionings. This is one of those. Topics. So you can see that I already have few things here, like the box object and all of that. One of the things that is always interesting to me when someone is just kind of doing like boxes with text and all of that is that they tend to use just the default, not knowing that they can actually play with that when it comes to the icons or the positioning. So that's kind of interesting. The first rule of thumb that I would like to use is to actually use the align text that we have here and also that we have here. Okay, so that's something that I always like to make sure that I got my base cover. So always kind of pointing to the middle or the middle here, unless you need the text to be at the top or at the bottom. But here's the interesting thing about this. When I'm gonna put the text on the top, you can see that there's a small movement, right? If you pay attention here, you see that there is a small movement, right? But at that point, that text, and maybe we should just do this, right? That text, look at the amount of white space that you have here. That's just a waste of a space. Doesn't make any sense, right? So that also, in the grand scheme of things, will also help you to have like more room for icons. And again, generally speaking, you will have more room to fit things into the diagram. So how do I go about this? Again, going back to the shape format, right? Here we have the size and the properties. And under text, right, we can see that we have the margins. And this is really where you're gonna play with that. I always like to, when I need the text to be on the top, right? I always like to basically reduce this to 0.05. Right? So that's one thing that I like to do. You can always, you can also go more aggressive than this. You can go 0 pretty much, right? But 0 to me feels too close to the border, to the outline. So that's just one thing. Let's bring it back to 0.05. It's always funny to do these streams, like when you are kind of describing how to diagram things that you're doing kind of as a muscle memory and trying to break it down into an explanation. It's always kind of an interesting experience here that I'm having. Anyway, so there is that. When you do this type of stuff, make sure that, just work with the top, middle, and bottom. Like if your text needs to be on the bottom, don't just use the text positioning. Also use the alignment of the text. That will help you a lot. Okay, so that will save you some room. Now, if you think about that, all right, let's just look at the notes here. Yeah, so if you think about that, it also gives you the opportunity to just include more things in the box, right? Because let me show you kind of what I mean by that. Okay, and just for the sake of of this one, we'll turn this one into black. We'll talk a lot about colors later on. I have a full segment on that. But if if you look at just kind of the relationship between the icons, you look at the relationship between the icons and the text, the border, all this stuff, right? This is all very important. And obviously I'm using right now like a huge font, right? This is like what, 24 right now. So that's, did you all just lose me? Wasn't sure. Yeah. Let's just check. Yeah. Okay. That was weird. Not sure what happened there. All right. Sounds like Kiana, we're good now, right? Okay, cool. Thanks. All right. That was weird. All right, let's come back to that. So anyway, I talked a bit about the relationship here. You can see that there is more room to fit, the icon and all of that. And again, don't just think like one small box. Think about complex structures, as you're building this. You want to try to save real estate where possible. You want to make sure that, it's not, completely out of proportion, right? And as you will do this, you're going to practice and you'll see that, you're going to find your own rhythm on this. So this is just one another thing that I wanted to talk about. Another interesting thing here, and the step numbers is always a good example, right? Is a lot of the time what people will do. Let's just say that you have the number 2, but let's just say for now that you have also a higher step number. And I believe I have like few examples of this. Like I'm not sure if we have that here. Yeah, we have like a kind of dual digit situation, right? You have 3A, maybe 3B, right? Or maybe 11, just dual character. Let's just call it that way. So a lot of the time, what people will do is that when they will need to add a number, right? Let's just say this needs to be 2A, right? So I'm going to do 2A, and look what happens. Like that completely trash my step number. Now, I would say that you can go and do this, right? But now you made the entire thing bigger. So you just lost some real estate. You don't want that. Instead, what you can do is you can go here again to the margins and just play with that. That's what I always like to do. And specifically with the step numbers, right? I like to reduce this to 0 on both, the left margin and the right margin. And that way I don't need to change the entire object. I can just change the margins. So that helps me a lot when I have a lot of those. Again, it's all about the real estate. You doing okay there? Looks like it. Cool. All right. So let's talk about some more concepts here. The next one that I wanted to talk about is symmetry, and object distance, leveling, positioning, and grouping. All of this stuff are just kind of goes hand in hand. Sure, I work a lot inside PowerPoint when I do this type of diagram, so I picked up a few things along the way. But I was actually quite surprised, how many people does not know the fundamentals when doing this, but also not super surprised because not everyone lives inside PowerPoint when they are diagramming. So I wanted to show you some things when it comes to symmetry and object distance and all those good stuff. So first thing first, you can see that as I'm moving this, like you can see those red dotted lines, right? Like as we do this, these are very important. They tell you where you are, right, in relations to the diagram, to the slide boundary. So that's a very important thing. Now, what I always kind of looking at is I'm looking to see how do I level things. Now, obviously, this is just one box, so super simple, nothing fancy about that. But when you have multiple objects, that's where things are very interesting. So master the art of just knowing how to use the leveling and the object distance. That's that's like a 80% of all the diagrams kind of logic. A lot of that. The rest is just styling and attention to small details. But these are important things because it also influences when you're trying to create relationship between objects. You don't want arrows or line to be out of whack. Like you don't want them to have like this weird asymmetrical shapes. You want things to be a bit more organized, so it will be easy on the eyes, so it will be easier to, to read the diagram. So that's really an important one. Who do we have here? Oh, Silky. Love this stuff. PowerPoint has so many features for styling. Love your color scheme. Good to see you, Silky. Cool. So we talked about the base. Let's let's try to do some more things. I'll hit Control D. That's one of your best friends to duplicate objects. So again, keyboard shortcuts are very important. I tend to use only 3. Honestly, I don't need a lot. Control D will replicate the objects, right, or duplicate the objects, right, and Control G will group the objects, and Control Shift G will ungroup. These are really the 3 ones that I suggest for you to master. All the rest is just a bonus, honestly. So, all right, now that we have another box, just for fun, we'll change this to box number 2. You can see that we also have the concepts of leveling and symmetry between 2 objects, right, as I'm moving this. And we can see that these lines are changing. So let's talk about that for a moment, right? When you see the arrows, that basically tells you the distance, right? Use that when you want to have like an equal distance between objects. That's very important, okay? Especially for large diagrams with a lot of objects. The more symmetry you will have, the easier it is going to be for people to actually read and understand your diagram, okay? By the way, one important concept or a principle that I haven't mentioned is that I always like to say that if you need to be in the room to explain a diagram, that means that the diagram is missing critical information. That's really the rule of thumb that I'm trying to work against, because I strongly believe that a diagram should not be a fancy painting in a in an art museum. Like, I shouldn't think about what the artist was trying to tell me. Like, that's not the case here. A diagram should be on point. It needs to have explanations. It needs to have verbose. We'll talk about all this stuff again, but that's a really important thing to mention here. And also, there's another principle here, which is, don't make assumptions about the person that is reading the diagram. Just because you know the topic doesn't mean that the people on the other side knows the topic. So if you, as the person that is creating the diagram, thinking that, oh yeah, that's obvious, right? This arrow goes here and this arrow goes there, and you're not putting any text around that, you're losing, right? You're losing because honestly, it's hard to understand. We'll talk about some text and verbose later on. Anyway, let's come back to the leveling and the symmetry. So we talked a bit about kind of the distance. We can see here that, as I'm moving things around, there is an equal distance that is starting to formalize, and everything is kind of magnetic, right? If you're used to work with PowerPoint, you know that as you're moving things around, there is this magnetic effect, right? It's kind of logically tactile, if that makes sense. So this is really the leveling. Let's talk a bit about what happens when you need to have like multiple objects. Okay, to do that, I'm going to move this box here, and I'm going to move this box here, and I'll show you kind of a nice trick, right? If I'm gonna Control D right now, we can see that there is a duplication of the object, but the placement of the object is just in relations to where this object is, like the parent object, right? So if I move this here, and again, we can see that the distance is now equal. You can see the 2 arrows, right? The 2 bidirectional arrows between box 1 and box 2, and then box 2 to box 2, right? So I'll drop that. And then if I'll Control D one more time, we can see the change in behavior. So when you're mastering this exercise or this principle, you're creating, basically, you're helping yourself in creating diagrams that are even, okay, or objects that are even. If you're falling in one line, it doesn't matter if it's vertical or horizontal, it doesn't matter. As long as you are repeating the pattern at least one time, PowerPoint will do the job for you and basically will complete the auto positioning. So that's a nice trick. Now, again, we talked about the and you can see, by the way, you can see that the distance, right, is similar, right? You can see this here, you can see this here, and the last one. So all those 4 boxes are now equal in distance. The thing that is not equal, right, is how they are positioning with relations to the rest of the slide. Okay, so again, we'll mark all of those. We'll group them. And now, right, as I'm moving this, we can see that now we have more symmetry. So they are positioned in the middle of the horizontal line and also in the middle of the vertical line or the slide. So again, knowing where you are in the slide is very important. Cool. All right. Yeah, so we talked a bit about the distancing and all of that. What happens when you need to do? I have a note here, like when you want to do like a vertical alignment and or horizontal alignments with different sizes, because right now all these boxes are the same, right? But what if I will do something like this? Let's kill this one and kill this one, and we'll ungroup, okay, and we'll bring those in, and we'll do this. Now, I'll show an example what I mean. It's a bit easier to see it that way. And here's what I mean. If you look at this diagram as an example, right? You can see that, and let's focus on the pipe that we have here. Okay, so we're focusing on this. You can also see that this pipe is positioned dead smack in the middle of the horizontal line for this box. Okay, and there's there are multiple concepts or principles here that we're gonna hash out here when it comes to inside out and work your way from within and outside. That's at least what works for me. But the thing that I'm trying to highlight here is that always be aware of the positioning of an object with relations to another object that it's interacting with or positioned inside of it. I hope that makes sense. So this pipe is positioned right dead smack in the middle. It also helps with the arrow. Like you can see that the arrow here, right, is also 100% aligned. And this box right here is also 100% aligned with the horizontal line of the big box. Okay. And this pipe will go here, right? This arrow right here, right, goes into the center of this box that we have here. So you can see that as I'm building those diagrams, I always try to keep that symmetry, leveling, and trying to position objects as much as I can, because sometimes it's a bit hard, depends on the complexity of the diagram, as much as I can to be leveled and centric with other objects. Okay, so just something to keep in mind that I wanted to highlight. Now we're moving to the more kind of fun stuff. Okay, so again, just to close on this, you can see here that as I'm moving this, PowerPoint will tell you the middle, right? So you can see as I'm moving this, basically we have this telling me that this box is now in the middle of this box and vice versa, obviously. Okay, so just something to keep in mind here. All right, let's see how we're doing in the chat. All right, see a few more folks. Good to see everyone. Nice to see you all. Grab some tea, like I talk a lot. Someone told me once that I talk a lot. So, all right. Now let's get into the more nitty-gritty stuff, okay? Because these are, until now we were just talking about some fundamentals, but now we're going to talk a bit about more of the styling and the design language and the method that I'm using in order to create those diagrams relatively fast, okay? A lot of the time when I'm getting those diagrams, I'm getting those in nowhere near to the shape that they need to be, right? Because again, I acknowledge the fact that maybe it's not your passion as someone that is responsible for either a product or whatever, and you don't know how to do this stuff. Peace, no problem. That's cool. So a lot of the time, I'm getting diagrams that it's very hard to understand. So I need to do a lot of conversations with the person who provided me with the diagram in order to get to a point that is this, right? So how do I do that? I use multiple concepts. I use multiple design principles to get there. The first thing that I like to always highlight is the inside out and complex elements first. Okay, and I have a couple of examples here that I want to highlight. Again, this is just a part of a diagram. I just took a chunk here. I just thought that it's interesting. Those riddles that they're asking you to count how many triangles are in a big triangle or in a picture, and you never get it right, right? Sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 11, sometimes it's 14, right? Because our eye doesn't realize that there are more elements or more objects in the shape of a triangle because everything is smooshed together. It's kind of the same here, kind of similar. So if you look at this entire thing, how many elements do you think, or how many objects do you think that we have here? Based objects and complex objects. Complex objects mean more like icons, but base objects. Let's count this together for a second. And notice how I'm starting from inside and work my way out, okay? Like sushi, inside out, right? So first thing is this icon right here. And again, doesn't matter the technology. I don't care about the technology. I don't care about the product right now. That's not the point. So this guy sits inside this box, right? And this box sits inside this box. By the way, you don't see part of it because it's hidden. We'll talk about backwards and front row and back row here in a moment. But so we have another box. Okay, so that's number 3 already. Now, inside that box, we also have another box and another sequel here, another icon. So I'm already at 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's another one, 5, 6, an icon, 7, right? And another icon here, that's 9. And then I'm only at this box, but you can see where I'm going with this. We have another replication of this entire thing here, okay? So now we are at 18, that's 27 because we have 3 boxes. Now we have 2 more here. So this is another one. This is another one. We're 29. That's 30. That's 31, 32, right? 35, 36, 7, 8, and also a text here. That's 38 elements, or 39 because we have another one here. We cut that. That's 39 elements just in this box. So how do you go about this? The way you want to think about this, and by the way, there's another good example here, right? You can see also multiple elements that are starting from within and then explode their way out. So how do you go about this? The best way to go about this is that when you start your way from within and work your way out, that's a very important rule of thumb in order to create these type of diagrams. Because if you're going to start from the outside, okay, it's going to be very hard to put furnitures inside. So it's not like a house. It's kind of backwards, okay? You need to think about what is the smallest piece of the diagram, and then how do you actually go and duplicate or replicate this small piece if you need multiple of those. Because remember, in this one, for example, right, you can see that we have, so this one is, kind of a big box. Here's another one. Here's another one. But I don't need to go and manually create each one of those. I just need to create one. That's my baseline. So if I need to create one, I need to make it perfect. So then the other ones will be perfect. So always work your way from outside. And a good example, or a good, just kind of, let's just do a quick example of this, right? If I'll take, let's try to replicate this. So I'll take this guy, right? So this is just the icon. And then we have, this. So we'll do that. We'll bring that to the back. We'll talk about that in a second here, right? Obviously, it's not going to be perfect right now. And then we have, on top of that, we have, so imagine that we have, why imagine? Let's just do that. We'll Control G this, we'll group this. Remember the tip that I gave you. So now we have 4, we'll group those, right? We'll bring this to the front, right? We'll level things. Look at this. Let me just going to show you. We will gonna level this. You can see that, like, you see that? These are the things that people sometimes miss. It's the leveling with other objects. Always try to identify those relationships that you have between different objects. Symmetry. It's all about the symmetry. Okay. Same goes here. Okay. So we can see that we have, can see how those 2 lines are now popping, right? This one and this one. So you see where I'm getting with this, right? I mean, I'm starting to build from, from the inside out. Okay. And then I'm going to complete the box. And then eventually I'm going to duplicate and replicate until I will have this entire element. The more you're going to exercise or practice this, the better. Like, this is a very important principle that leads me in all the diagrams that I create. So Hey, any questions in the chat? Like I was wondering, you're all here chilling with me. Come on, talk to me, people. Anything that you want me to cover that I haven't covered yet, or maybe I will cover later on. Give me an opportunity to drink something. By the way, I have my friend here with me. Well, I have Bono here with me. That's my dog. But I also brought this. Like, I don't know if you see that. Like, that's Forrest Gump. I always like to have him next to me. It's kind of fun. When you're doing a live stream, you're very lonely. I always like to look at him, take some inspiration. It's also the if you look at the picture, right? Run Forrest Run. It's kind of my favorite movie. Anyway, let's come back to diagramming. All right, so we covered a bit of the inside out. Let's talk about object dimensions and common denominator. Okay, another important concept. Okay, what I mean by object dimensions and common denominator is always be aware of the size of the objects that you're working with. Okay, and be aware of the kind of you're only strong as your weakest link. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'll give you an example to what I mean. And I put a couple of examples here just to illustrate that. I'll take this box, the SQL Server box. Okay, you know what? We don't care that it's SQL Server. We'll fine, whatever. All right. So this is the SQL Server. I struggle with arrows in Visio. So much prefer PowerPoint. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. +1 for sure. I think the problem with Visio is that it's designed for connecting elements, but that's it. Like it doesn't have any elements of styling and being able to customize things. So when you try to create diagrams for architecture and all of that, sure, you can do that. The problem is that Visio is so kind of flat. And for some people it works, but like you said, for me also PowerPoint, that's what we're here. Cool. All right, let's come back to that. So what do I mean by common denominator? What I mean by common denominator is to try to, again, it's all about the symmetry, right? It's all about the ease on the eyes. So what I mean by common denominator, I mean that if you have multiple objects, and usually with the text, right, you want to make sure that, one, those objects are at the same size, okay? Just because the text is not the same doesn't mean that you need to just be, just to slack when it comes to the size of the box, right? And you want to make sure that, you are, first of all, having, having the, I thought that we are posting this on YouTube. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be on YouTube. Like we're also streaming on YouTube. So yeah, no worries. We'll stream it on YouTube as well, not just LinkedIn. So coming back to this, I have two boxes, okay, with the same text. But what if I need to say SQL Server, I don't know, 2000, okay? You can see how automatically, right, the text drop, okay? Now it means that I have a misalignment, right, when it comes to here we have 2 lines, here we have 1 line. To me, I don't like it. So the way I like to go about this, and let's just say, we have another one. Let's just say that here we have another box, and that box is, we'll call it SQL Server Enterprise version 1. Okay, I know it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't really matter the technology right now. Okay, so we can see the problem here. What I like to do in these type of cases is a couple of things. One, I like to group the elements, and then I like to start kind of stretching all the way to the point. And you know what? This text is too huge, right? So I'll do this, right? So you can also do this by just kind of playing with the text, right? But yeah, we're back to 28. So I'm gonna reduce this to 18 just to illustrate what I'm trying to say here. As I'm moving this, right, and we'll move this here, we'll zoom out a bit. You can see that now, and I know that again, that the box sizes and the fonts doesn't make sense, right? Because this is too huge, but just for illustration, we can see that now that the boxes are the same size, right? Same size, 1 line of text, right? And it looks much cleaner. Now, that's what I mean by common denominator. And also remember, right? Remember what we talked about in the context of the margins. Because, by the way, if you have a group and then you have the margins. If you're changing something, that will influence the entire group. Like it will apply to the entire group. Okay. So you can see that how the text is kind of shifting. Okay. The entire group. If I'll come back to 0.3, you can see that it's changing everything. So play with that. Now, the common denominator here, right, in our example was this box, right? Because we had like 3 lines, the box looked out of whack, doesn't make any sense. So as you're working your way from inside out, okay, always think about what will be the, the smallest box that I can fit in the context of the text and the icon that I will have here. And this is exactly what I did here, right? You can see that you have a box here. So these are 3 objects in one element. You have the text, you have the box, and you have the icon. Those are 3 elements. So always take this into account as you are designing. The more you're going to do that, the easier it will get, right? You will understand how to think about how the diagram should look like. Okay? Peace. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about arrows and lines. Another important topic. Okay. So arrows and lines are pretty interesting. I use a lot of those, obviously. I mean, when you create diagrams, I use a lot of arrows. You can see it here, you can see it all over the place, different types of arrows. Sometimes it's just lines, usually it's arrows. But elbow arrows, which is what you see here, right? These are elbow arrows, right? You have straight arrows, stuff like that, pretty self-explanatory, right? I use a lot of those. And it's also very important. Why is that very important? It's important because arrows are the connected tissues, right? These are most of the time the elements that you will use in order to create relationship between 2 objects, okay? Now, some situations are pretty straightforward, right? You had an arrow, let's do an elbow arrow, like you can see here. That's a connector, right? And that's an elbow arrow, what I'm showing here. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, also something that, pretty self-explanatory. You can see that, again, the box, it has this kind of boundary lines, and you always have like multiple of those, depends on the objects, depends on what type of either box or an oval or, whatever that may be, you're always going to have those. So try to fit into that. Okay. That's going to be your default. If you're not able to do so, there are other techniques, which we're going to show right now. Okay. So this is going to be number 1. Now, a straightforward thing will be for me to just go and basically attach those, right? I have this. Awesome, right? Pretty easy. You can also play with the height, which is something that I always do, or most of the time I have to do, because again, there's a lot of elements and I need to play with, the positioning. You want to make sure that, nothing is, in the way. By the way, a big no-no, when it comes to diagramming, I'll show you this. Like, I'm just going to grab an icon here, and we'll explain what I mean. A big no-no, in my opinion, is to have like something like this, right? Where you have like just an icon and then the line goes through the icon and there is no explanation. It looks a bit off to me. So that's just a big no-no for me. Again, what works for me, remember. So we talked about this, but what happens when you need the arrow to land in a different place in the box? And when is that going to happen? Well, multiple places, or you have multiple examples of how, and why, right? Sometimes, and I don't know if I have a good one. Yeah, I do have a good one. So I think I also put like an example here, I believe. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let me show you how it looks like. You see that? Let's focus on that for a moment. Let's focus on that greenish line that we have here. Now, you might think that, and let's just zoom in a bit. You might think that what I did is just pick the line from the, from shapes and started to kind of draw the line from point A to point B, right? From here all the way to here. But no, that's not what happened, because you can see that I have other lines here and I had to keep my distance. I had to make sure that I'm keeping the right relations between the distance of the arrows, the lines, and all of that. So here's what I did, right? So you can see that we have, let me just going to draw this. Here's the, and apologies, I'm not very good in drawing with my mouse, but here's the line. But let's break it down. You can see that the line is not actually touching the box. It's freeform. and it's connected to another line. Let's zoom in. This is the connection point between the two lines. And the reason for that is because if I were to do this, let's just delete that. If I wanted to take it here, at that point, I'm losing the flexibility that I have with this line. This line to me, right now, I cannot do anything because I'm connected here and I'm connected here. But you can see that there's no way for me to change the height, the direction, like there's nothing. So I'm constrained by this, and that's not good for me. So what I need to do, I need to basically mimic the behavior that I want with adding another line. So sometimes that's a technique that I like to use. Any examples of multiple arrows pointing to at another box, like multiple spoke vignettes pointing at the same hub vignette, hub and spoke? Yeah, sure, multiple of those. It's a good question. Let's talk about it. And I think that what you're describing here, Gregory, is a situation where you have like something like this. Let's just remove that, right? And we'll do this. Just going to do that on the fly. Thanks for the question. It's a good question. And I'll group this. I'll bring this to the front, sorry, to the middle, right? So now it's in the middle. And now it's in the middle. You can see that alignment. And I think that what you're describing is, what if I need to shoot arrows from here to here to here? How do I go about that? Right? I think that that's what you're asking. I hope so. So in that situation, what I like to do is one of two things, right? If I can, I would like to get to a point that the arrows are not touching each other, okay? Because sometimes that creates a confusion, because that creates like a situation when you're describing a converge flow. I don't want that. So what we're talking about basically when I need to like do something like this. So now you don't know the source and the destination. Well, you know the source and the destination, but you don't know what it means that now is just one arrow. So what I like to do in these cases is I like to do something like this, right? Or something like this, and then shoot another one from here. That's one option. Another option, if you really want everything to be at the bottom of the box because it makes more sense for you, like symmetry ones and all of that, what I like to do is I like to do something that that I can demonstrate here. Let me show you this. I like to do this. So we'll duplicate this and we'll take this. You can see that, oh, PowerPoint is about to crash. PowerPoint is acting super funny on me these couple of days. I'm not sure why, and keeps crashing and then just open. I have no idea what's going on. Anyway, not going to debug this now. But let's come back to that. So what I like to do, Gregory, is I like to do this. And then something that a lot of people don't realize is that you can actually, you don't have to hit the mark that you have here in the middle. You can just play with, and let me just kind of zoom in. You can just play with the size, right? And then as you are moving, you can see that the arrow is going to change. So all you need to do is just to make sure that it's straight. And there, that's it. You're done. We'll do this for the other side as well. And this, and, do this. Oop, oop, there you go. And bang. So now you have two arrows that are hitting the box at the bottom, right? And you don't need to do any manipulations. So now try to think about that in a much broader scale when it comes to the architecture that you're talking about. I hope that helps, Gregory. Cool. All right. I'll be moving on now. We're still rolling, right? Yeah, we're still rolling. I don't know what's going on. Cool. Let's talk about let's talk about some step numbers. Let's talk about that. So that's a very important one. Step numbers always I always like to use those in flow diagrams. Obviously, they describe a journey. They describe basically relationship, who is talking to what object is talking to who, where the flow starts, where does it end, all of those good stuff. So that's why I like to use step numbers. Now, When it comes to step numbers, uh, don't be cheap. That's all I will say here. Don't be cheap. Um, it's also very important, which leads me to one of the things that I always see that are missing in diagrams that I'm getting is the verbose. I like to call it the verbose. You can see that there's a lot of text. There is a step number here. There is text here. There is some color coding going on as well. So it will be easy for you to identify the fact that this arrow, which is blue, goes with this text, which is blue, right? So that's another thing. There is text here, right? Also notice how the text here, because I'm describing a path, right? It's italic. That's another thing that I like to do. Just kind of distinguish small things, detail matters. So there is that. So step numbers, verbose, these are all important things. Comes back to this notion of don't make assumptions that I know what you're trying to tell me with the diagram. Try to explain this in your own words. And it doesn't matter if you have a lot of text. That is something that can be cleaned after. But at least you know what you're trying to tell others. At least others will understand. Okay. So I wanted to really highlight that point because it's one of those things that always pop, always pop. I'm always asking people, hey, add some text, explain to me what is this supposed to mean? Like why there is an arrow here? If you're not giving me like the text, how should I I don't know all the things. It's like there's a lot of stuff, right? I need some explanations. Bring me along. And that's definitely something that helps. So I wanted to highlight this. And the step numbers, right? In terms of positioning, I have to say, I'm not religious about this. Like sometimes, if it makes sense, I will put the step number on top of the arrow. Sometimes I will position it next to the text. Sometimes I will just, kind of play with that. I'm not super strict about that with myself. So that's just one thing that I like to call out when it comes to the step numbers, right? I used to, by the way, kind of match the step numbers to the line, to the color, sorry, of the line. I stopped doing that because just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And recently, what I've been exploring is something else, like another technique. So let's just say you're looking at the 3B here, right? What if that? Let me know in the comments. Like I really like to know. What if that 3B, right, will be all black, right, and the outline will be the same color as the arrow? Does that look better to you? Just kind of wondering, let me know in the comments. Just the YouTube algorithm, people. We need some comments to talk to me. It's kind of important. All right. We're making some progress. I told you there's a lot to cover. So let me know if that's something that makes more sense. Okay. Let's switch gears to another. We're getting close to the end here. There are a couple more topics that I wanted to cover, and let's talk about order object. Okay, so order object, like the order objects is basically the notion of which objects is behind which object, if that makes sense. So sometimes you can see that how the black box is hiding next to the or behind the red one, right? So the way to go about this is let's just say that you need to have that. You're just going to go bring to back, bring to front, okay, and just play with that the way you need. Now, why is this important? I know it sounds silly or it looks silly that we're even talking about this. Why is this important? Coming back to this complex kind of elements. Remember, this one had, I believe it was 39, right? 39 elements just in this one. And again, just to put things in the right context, right? This one was taken from this. So you still have this entire top section that you need to take care of. So why is this bring forward or bring to front and move to back? Why is this important? It's important because when you're trying to create very detailed and accurate relationships, okay, these type of bring forward or move to the back are just important. They're just very important. And a good example will be basically here, right? So we can see here, right, that we have, and again, this is just a styling thing. You don't have to do it, but it makes a lot of sense, right? If you are, Brandy is asking, do you follow any particular design system sites, or do you know what looks good and it's a best practice? Kind of a combination, Brandy. to be honest. And I guess it's just because I've been doing this for a long time, so it's a bit of a muscle memory. But yeah, I'll show some sites in a few moments here. I do have a couple of those to highlight. Not specifically about design language, more like around the icons and all of that, but you see what I mean. Anyway, so coming back to, to bring, send to back, bring forward, all of those good stuff. You can see that here I have a box that I wanted to hide, behind this one. And we can see that we have another one that I wanted to hide. And this entire thing, like if you look at this entire structure, right, is sitting on top of this gray box, right? This one. So that's very important. Like you're trying to create multiple dimensions, multiple layers, right? And these are the things that you can do with PowerPoint very easily. Kind of interesting that a lot of people don't know about this stuff, but here we are, right? So use that. Try to figure out. A lot of the time, what you will see or what I will do is something like this. So I need to create a box. Let's just say that this one, I don't know, we'll call it an app, right? So I'll stretch this a bit, right? And then I need to bring this, let's just say that this will be in the back, right? And I know that I need to bring this forward. So what I will do, I will send this to the back or bring this one forward. I will do this, right? Just kind of play with that. We'll reduce the fonts, which is also kind of interesting. Like I like to use different font sizes um, with relations to the location. So the big box will have the bigger font, the smaller box will have the smaller font. Just trying to follow. I'm trying to follow that principle. Now, another element here is, I'll bring this to the top, right? Like we did. And like I mentioned, I don't like the fact that it's like 0.1. So I'll go here to format background. I'll click the box, go here to text, right? And we'll change this one, right? It's the top margin that we want to change. Notice how just the box one text is going to flip now and go a bit higher. Cool. And now if I want to bring an icon to the picture, just take the Azure icon here, and I'm going to do this, right? And I'll bring this here. And this icon now is at the top. This icon is, or this box is behind this one. And this box is on top of this one, or this one is, at the back of this one. So I hope it makes sense. So just wanted to call out these elements of, bring to front, send to back, kind of important. Cool. Last topic before I'm showing you some, I'm talking about some other things, and I don't think that we're gonna have time to go and do like a diagram end to end, but I think we cover a lot of ground. But I'll try my very best to talk about some things here. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to call out is colors and accents, which is kind of important. I put a few things here just kind of as principle, so I won't forget. So colors and accents are great for object relationship and flow visualization to pop. And the best example is what I just tried, right? Because if what I did with this change, I created relationship between the step number and the arrow, right? I could have maybe do something, one more thing, but sometimes less is more. I could have just do this, right? And now that there is relationship. But in this case, I just thought that it doesn't make a lot of sense because, sometimes you want to keep things a bit more generic, right? But sometimes you want to use colors in order to create very strong relationship. And I'll show you an example, right? This one is a great example because you are describing a flow, right, that goes from, in this case, in this firewall, right, and you have a bunch of arrows going into different directions. But notice how it's very easy to notice that you have basically a flow that is a yellow flow that goes into this box, and then a flow that is a green flow that goes inside that dotted line box. So that's easy to see. So that's why I like to use colors to make things pop a bit when I'm trying to emphasize relationship or trying to make something pop. Okay. How do you ensure icons do not lose? Oh, yeah, it's a great question. I'll talk about it in a second here when it comes to PNGs, SVGs, and you lost me again, I think, right? There's now two of you. The world is not ready for this. Let me just remove this. And share screen, entire screen. Kiana, let me know if we're back. We're back? Yeah, we're good. I see the thumbs up. Thanks. I'm not sure what's going on with with StreamYard today, but apologies for this, folks. All right, Ken, I think we're good. So what I was saying is that I'll talk about it here in just a second in the context of SVGs, PNGs, and sizes. Hold that thought. It's a very good question you had there. Another thing is shape fill versus outline versus both, right? So what I mean by that is sometimes you need to take a decision if you want to fill the entire shape or you just want to fill just the outline, right? Or you want to do both. Sometimes you want to do both when you're trying to create a grouping or, again, it's like emphasizing relationship. So you can see here, I'll have a couple of examples for you, right? Let's go up here for just a second. Yeah. So you can see that here, for example, right? I wanted to create relationship, or I wanted to emphasize the point that this, for example, this box is the same as this box, right? Is the same as this box. So you can see it's the same color. But here, I wanted to highlight the, in this case, the Ethernet ports. But because there are multiple colors that I needed here, doing this with a full kind of feel of the object would make it look very weird. Like, and you just don't have enough colors. And also sometimes, again, less is more. Like when you have a lot of colors and they're filling up your screen, sometimes it's hard on the eyes. So always trying to find that balance. Again, you have like here's another relationship. You have this, you have this, you have this. Here you wanted to create a relationship between like on the direction. So you can see here, like you have the green, you have the yellow, right? And there was always room for improvement, right? I mean, a diagram is never complete. Like there is always room for improvement. There's always things that you can do to tweak and all of that. Yeah, where applicable, fill color should complement the icon, right? I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you have, let's just say, we'll take this one. So if I have this guy right here, I'm talking about this box, right? And the icon is purple, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense for me to go and do this, right? That just look weird. Like you don't see the actual icon. So yeah, always be aware of this stuff. Try to think about how you're matching. It's also got to do with accessibility. I mean, someone that is colorblind, right? There's no way for them to see this. There's just no way. Okay, so this is definitely something to keep in mind. Coming back to the colors, gradient colors. Yeah, I talked about this. I mean, try to play with that. I mean, sometimes it's fun to just play with Guardian colors. What I like to do sometimes is, let's just say that you have, we'll bring this to the original state, right? Let's just say that you have two boxes, right? And just for the sake of the example, I'll color both of them or fill both of them as just black, right? It's easier. And you want to emphasize, what, two boxes is not enough. Let's just say that you have 4, right? So let's just say that I want to highlight box number 3, okay? Now I can go and change the color and I can do that, but something that is a bit more, I would say something that is a bit more, I want to say minimal or easy is for me to just go here to the line and actually change the stops number colors. So what I'm going to do is, the dominate color here is just this, bluish thing. What I'm going to do, I'm going to change it, let's just say to red. And you can already see how by just making this small change, this entire box looks completely different. You can go one step further and, maybe pick another color that will complement this, make it look a bit more like fire, right? So you can see that just 2 changes, I highlighted this box. So just by using those stop colors, kind of nice. I saw a question here. Would you say you're constantly inspired by working with the design team into trying new, creation neurodiagram? Yeah, I mean, actually I do, Brandy, I do. I like my design team. Not all of them, but I like them. Cool. Aeroline colors. Again, we talked about this. This is really the notion of, trying to find opportunities to use different colors. If you want to highlight relationship, if you want to highlight the flow, talked about this. Match the text color where applicable. Again, this is a good example. And if you have again, this is all about how much you want something to pop, right? So in this case, we have, the green one, we have the green arrow, we have the green text, right? Make it pop. Sometimes you'll find those opportunities. And the last thing that I will say when it comes to colors, and then I'll switch to the other questions because we really do need to finish this live stream. It was fun. Is Power Toys. If you're working with Windows and you're not using Power Toys, honestly, I don't know, like you're missing. But one thing that I always use when I'm trying to find a specific color that I see and I just don't know the hex number, right? I have Power Toys. Now, Power Toys, Shift, Win Key, and C. I have an Elgato Stream Deck, just a microcontroller here. And what I do, I just, hit the color, and then you can see that, basically it will show me the color that I'm on and will give you the X number, right? So if I'll click that, it will bring this. And what I can do, I can copy this. And now, let's just say that I want to use that. I can create a custom color. We'll do more colors, custom, and I'll paste the hex number right here. So that will give me basically the same color. So this color is the same color as what we have here. So that's just a color picker, super easy. I know. You want to know where do I get some Azure icons? I'm getting to that. No problem. I just want to answer, and we're gonna skip this one, but I did want to answer, the question from before around the size. So that's got to do with this question. First question: where do I get icons from, and which one is better, SVG or PNG? Generally speaking, SVG. I like to use it because you get the entire kind of metadata of the icon, okay, and you can play with that. So that's really something that I like to use. When it comes to how you're not trashing the size of the icon, well, if you're using an SVG, that means that you have. It's almost like if you're familiar with photography, like it's like taking a raw picture instead of JPEG, right? You get all the metadata. So to me, when I'm getting an icon, I'm usually getting this as an SVG. And what I like to do, right? I don't like to do this, right? But the nice thing about SVG is that when you're going to do this, automatically the dimensions and the relationship will stay the same. That's not going to be the same behavior with a PNG, okay? And you can see that here. Like if you go to graphics format and you look at the heights and the width, right? You can see that as I'm changing this, it's going to stay the same. Generally speaking, I like to stay within the boundaries of 0.3 to 0.6. Bigger than that or smaller than that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And again, it depends on where's that in the diagram. Okay, you can see here that this is 0.5. Usually on I will be at 0.4. That's the sweet spot for me. Yeah. So let's talk about where do I bring icons from, because I know that's kind of a burning question. So to do that, I have a couple of resources. I'll talk about Alex here in a second. That's got nothing to do with the icons. First thing first, David Summers. I got to know this repo. I believe it was in like the stream 2 years ago. David has been doing a great job. Honestly, if you're not familiar with this repo, we'll put the links in the description down below for the stream. But David is doing a great job. If you're not inside Microsoft and you don't have access to icons that you want, or if you need Microsoft or icons, that's a great place to start. Obviously, he's just doing this on its own. Super impressive, really. And everything is open source, free. So big shout out to David, on creating this repo. I think it's great. Personally, I have everything that I need inside Microsoft internal kind of websites, because usually I diagram things, in Microsoft. But this one is a great public resource for icons. There's another one. It's a bit older, but still, there are a few good things here. I don't think it's really up to date, so use with your own discretion. So that's another one. So it's called a code.bencode.io. Again, we'll share all the links here. Maybe if Kiana is fast enough, she can catch those and put those in the chat. So David Summers, and then code.benco, and we have another one, Azure Architecture Icons. Also a bunch of icons here. And to be fair, in my diagrams, I use like internal resources or internal websites that we have in order to get those. So I know it's kind of a bit of an unfair advantage, but you use what you can. So that's just something to keep in mind. So that's where I'm getting my icons. Now, if you need an icon that is not an Azure icon, I do the same as you are. So let's just say, for example, I need AWS icons, right? So just there's a lot of places. Now you can also search for something individual. So for example, if I were to look for AWS EC2, and then I'm just going to write SVG, right, and go to images, you'll see a lot of options. So you just need to play with that and download the SVG. And most of the time, this will be free. Okay, most of the time, this will be free. Just keep that in mind. Okay, getting closer to the end here. Switch back real fast. Thanks for posting the links there. And all the rest. Yeah. So how do I export slides in high resolution? There are actually two methods to this. If you're using Snagit, so I use Snagit a lot, and it's a paid version. I pay for that. And if you're capturing an image or a screenshot with Snagit, what will happen is that, let's just say that I'm putting this in presentation mode, like this. Switch to one of the diagrams, right? And I want to capture this one in a high res. What I will do is I will just click anywhere. This will bring me Snagit, and this is what I see on my end. Okay, so all I need to do right now, by the way, this is a big no-no when you're capturing slide. Make sure that this is nowhere to be found. Okay, so wait for this to disappear before you're capturing a diagram, because this is ugly. Anyway, so all I need to do is to just do this because I'm on widescreen, and that's it. That picture is high resolution right now. But if you don't have Snagit, what you can do is you can actually, I'll show you this real quick. It's a quick hack, just a quick registry edit. And there's an article here, how to export high resolution, high DPI slides from PowerPoint. It goes through the process, super easy. You're just changing a registry key, you reboot. And then when you go and export the slide as JPEG, automatically it will be in the highest resolution possible. So just a small trick here. And it gives you all the values to what is high resolution for you. I mean, you can go all the way to 300 DPI, which is pretty high, right? So just wanted to call this out. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. Unfortunately, I couldn't just gonna go through the E2E. I hope that was useful to you. The last question that a couple more questions that I wanted to answer is why do I prefer dark theme? Because my eyes are super sensitive, to be honest. Like light theme and white makes my eyes hurt. That's because I did a laser job when I was 18 years old, which was 22 years ago. God damn it! So I did a laser job, and since then, when I look at the monitor and there is a bright white, it's very hard on my eyes. So that's why I focus on dark theme all the time. Plus, I think it looks better. And why I'm not a fan of moving diagrams, I get this question a lot. I'm not a fan because moving diagrams are good when you're just looking at them on screen. Most of the time, the lack of context, that's what I noticed. And you can't really share them unless you're exporting those into GIF, but then there's copyright violation. So you can't really share those at scale. That's why I'm not a fan. And a lot of the time, honestly, for me, they're just harder to understand. Like all these moving pieces and dots that are going all over the place. I feel that I'm looking at a Pac-Man game. Like it's kind of weird. So yeah, what hardware do I use? I have Logitech MX3. That's what I use to diagram. I have a wide 38-inch monitor. ViewSonic, very good for color coding, and that's it. Cool. I think I'm done. Thanks everyone for coming here to the stream. Thank you, Kiana, for helping me in the back room there. And everyone, thanks. Yeah, that was stupid. I'm not sure what's going on with StreamYard, but I'm going to end the stream right now. Bye, everyone.